Hi, everybody. It's week 9, which is hard to believe. And we finished our consideration of Zong tonight in conversation with my incredibly brilliant colleague, Dr. Zora Hamsa. We wove together the um, more intentionally the Black theoretical tradition from Black studies that really energizes Philip's work, putting it into conversation with the work of Hartman and Brand and Winter and so many more who move in the kind of space between art and criticism. Black studies has much more porous boundaries, and many practitioners are operating on both sides of a space that is not siloed in the way that many other fields are, which is really generative for people like me who are also trying to find spaces in between. I am not an expert in Black studies. I'm just a big fan, which is why it was really important for me to um, ha- have the gift of my colleagues' time in order to provide a really useful conversation partner for our students as we thought through these issues. My students also selected some really great examples from the work of Bridget Fielder and Chris. Oh, now I can't remember. But thinking about the kind of uh, ca- uh, early Caribbean studies and as well as early American studies and the ways in which recovery work happens in the archives. It all worked really beautifully together. I was saying to Dr. Hamsa that I wasn't exactly sure what I would do with this recap. It's kind of a little bit of a placeholder for a much larger conversation that's nearly impossible to recap, which is actually kind of appropriate given that so much of what Zong is about, if it can be said to be about any particular thing, is the incapacity of language to truly recover and represent the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the experiences of enslaved people like the victims of the Zong massacre. And it's useful in that sense that we began this with dialect, a game about language. I'm still thinking about what it would mean if we had the time and space to play it again, or maybe flipping and reversing our experience if I do this again next time. Uh, A short one, I think today, it's been, a little bit of a fatiguing, set of days, and I think that's enough to say grace over in terms of, what we talked about. Next week, we are having a brief digression, into the discussion of game journalism and what it means to write about games for the public, the good, the bad, and the horrifically ugly with our class visitor, Quentin Smith, who is originally scheduled to be with us in person, but is not able to do so because he broke his leg. Um, so we will be meeting on Zoom, and I'm not sure how I'm going to recap that week or whether I'll recap that week. Um, for those of you who are just tuning into these vlogs for this class, the way that I operate with guests, especially virtual guests, especially folks who are in the space at least higher profile, is I default to it being a conversation that is more candid by virtue of the fact that it is functionally unrecorded or not transmitted to the public. Some people have chosen to or asked me to disseminate the conversation publicly, which is why you'll see in the archives that there are a few examples of recorded conversations. But generally speaking, I keep them among our students. Um, and that's kind of part of my larger ethos of the way that I choose to move through the space by garnering trust through that kind of discretion, allowing for the kind of candor that you can't do when you know this is on your permanent record, so to speak. So we'll see. I don't know. That's up for discussion between me and Quinn's in the lead up. I'm just very grateful that he's up to participating at all. Then we will return to thinking about the Caribbean and more specifically doing a pivot into an examination of the Haitian Revolution, arguably the most important revolution of this period that is known as the Age of Revolutions. Um, and we'll be talking with Alyssa Sepinwall about her work on adaptations and representations of the Haitian Revolution, including the second half of her book that examines the ways this appears in video games, large and small. So that's what's coming up ahead. And if you have questions about what's coming, please feel free to put them in the comments. And I will see you maybe next week, maybe week after. Time will only tell.